Hello and welcome to the Footy Mailbag. The 2026 AFL fixture was released today, so of course that means we can start our bye planning and also keep in mind the teams that take place in opening round and what we need to watch out for there. But joining me on this episode isn't Clarky, he is busy, so I have pulled Azza out of retirement to help me talk Supercoach, a game that he no longer plays. Hi, Azza.
G'day, Damo. It's good to be back, mate. Yes. Out of retirement, I'm not too sure about that, but out of the doldrums and out of the cave, yes. And here I am back once more.
I keep telling you you're going to come back eventually, and you keep agreeing to do things for me. I feel like you're going to come back at some stage.
Look, never say never, but look, pretty happy on this side of the fence at the moment. And don't envy the challenges that Supercoaches face this season and will be sure to face next season.
Now, this is a Supercoach podcast. We don't want listeners to stop playing. We want them to continue listening to us. But of course, you left because you'd played it for 20-odd years or close to 20-odd years, and you felt that you had tried everything and you'd done everything that the game had to offer, and you just felt like there wasn't a challenge anymore. Not that you had won anything, but that you had, pretty much exhausted all the avenues of playing the game, basically.
Yeah, look, it was a mixture of things. I mean, yeah, you're right. I've been playing Supercoach since its inception, way back in the days when we saw Gary Ablett get 250 on one season, had him captain for just a lowly 500 points for one player. I mean, yeah, look. And Jonathan Brown, we saw his massive score of over 250 as well. So there's been a lot of highs and been a lot of lows, and I think I stretched myself to my absolute limits towards the end there by not only playing and enjoying AFL Supercoach, but all the variations that fantasy had to offer across many different platforms. Tour de France fantasy, even during lockdown, or I had Marble One racing fantasy, and so I think it just sort of got to a point where it all became a bit too much, and I thought, no, look, maybe it's time to take a step back, take a break, refresh the mind, maybe look to some other data-related nuances, or just enjoy retirement, which so far I am. But again, you're right. We'll never say never.
I keep pulling you back, and I feel like one day you might all the way come back, but until that day, I hope you enjoy the stress, the less stress during a season.
Yes, and you're right in identifying. Look, it is less stressful on this side. As I mentioned earlier, it's seeing some of the stresses that Supercoaches have had to go through in the last season, navigating not only the bye rounds but also some new rules and some new nuanced approaches. It was a lot, and it looks like it's going to be another repeat into that after the fixture was announced today, Damo.
Absolutely. Well, let's dive in and have a look at the fixture as best we can. There's not a lot of analysis out there apart from the winners and losers, which I still don't quite understand how they gauge that, because somehow some teams always have the hardest fixture and other teams always seem to get the easiest fixture, even though, I don't know. I don't get how all that works. But opening round now has 5 games, so 10 teams involved, and we already knew that the teams from the northeastern states were going to be involved, so people would have already planned for Brisbane, Giants, the Suns, and Sydney players to be a part of opening round and then have that subsequent early season bye. But Carlton, Geelong, Hawthorn, Western Bulldogs, though they have joined the party, and now there's also a game at the MCG between St Kilda and Collingwood. And from a Supercoach perspective, St Kilda's the one that interests me the most, because they acquired the likes of Tom De Koning, Sam Flanders, who were going to be pretty popular players. Well, Tom De Koning was going to be fairly popular as long as Rowan Marshall moved, which he didn't. But Sam Flanders is going to be a fairly popular starting player, but making St Kilda a part of opening round has kind of muddied the waters in that case.
Yeah, you're exactly right, Damo. I mean, it's always an interesting approach. I mean, we always have to sort of look to adapt when these things come into play. I mean, we did see that in the 2025 season, the opening round wouldn't include traditional bye rounds and scoring, so therefore scoring would commence in round one, which kind of gave us a bit of a free hit to have a bit of a look at these players. And I think that's probably not the worst thing going into opening round for 2026 when you're looking at those players that have moved into new clubs. As you've said, Sam Flanders moving to St Kilda, good chance to really see how he comes up, not only through the preseason, but for the opening round. And then if it's all guns firing, jump on.
Another player that moved, Sam Draper. We'll see how the new ruck rules help or hinder the likes of a Sam Draper against a player like Tim English with the new ruck rules in the Brisbane Lions Western Bulldogs game.
Yeah, look, that's going to be fascinating. I mean, there's always an abundance of change season on season. I know the fans are sort of getting a bit frustrated and a bit tired of all of these changes, but it does invite new opportunities as well too, these changes. And yeah, one of those will be the ruck rules, and see how the ruckmen adapt to that. And I'm really, really curious to see how this not only takes on the likes of Tom De Koning, Sam Draper, but I tell you what, my big man Tristan Cherry, I reckon he is primed for another massive year.
Absolutely, and with no opening round or opening round bye, the North Melbourne players might be a really interesting one to go with in starting squads this season, especially with their start to the season as well. If we go to the subsequent byes of opening round, there's not a lot to be surprised with. They've gone 4-4-2 this time, though, which is a little surprising. You would have thought they would have gone 4-2-4 like they've done the last few seasons, but I don't think it really matters with best 18 around.
Yeah, you're exactly right, David. I mean, they could have opted for any different variation of combination, but yeah, the way that they've landed isn't going to be too disappointing for super coaches. Yeah, and given that we've got the best 18 as a mechanism now, we have the the COVID years to thank for that introduction when games were thrown around to the wazoo just to try to get the fixture continuing. And so, yeah, something that's now continued on into 2026 and beyond, and it will really definitely help Supercoach sort of navigate, especially the more casual users, navigate those earlier fixtures and sort of keep them a little bit more engaged rather than just sort of having your full squad requiring to play, because, yeah, in those first early rounds, near impossible to manage, especially if you're wanting to take on your primo players in the likes of Nick Dacos, David Zorko, Patrick Cripps, Errol Goulden, Bonds, John Newcomb. Yeah, look, it's a lot to navigate early on. So I think the best 18 really does help super coaches sort of tempt the waters a little bit and sort of get some security by having some of those players that aren't available early on, but down the track they will become more available.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that stands out to me with opening round and then the mid-season buys is the Giants have the round 4 bye with St Kilda, but then they have the first bye in round...
the second bye in round 13.
The second bye in round 13 with Richmond. Previously, where the teams that had the 2 that were on the 2 weren't involved in opening round. So the fact that the Giants have the opening round bye and then the mid-season bye, it makes you think twice about potentially stacking your team with Finn Callaghan, who was potentially going to be a popular starting pick given his end to the season, but also a Lockie Whitfield, a Lockie Ash, and then some of their draft picks, which might get some games after some of their departures and injury news.
Yeah, and it's a really tricky one. I mean, given that we've got a lot of clubs that are going to have 2 bye rounds, you're going to find that a lot of teams aren't going to be looking towards those. It's partly rightly so, but also, look, you've got to also think of the positives in terms of that. It's a little bit harder to navigate, but the Giants also have one of the easiest fixtures coming into the 2026 season, having only played, I think it's 2 teams from the top 8 from last season, whereas some are playing 3 or 4 as part of the new weighted fixture. So Giants have got off really easy, so their fixture is going to be a lot easier, so that invites a lot more potential for those Giants players. So something to keep in mind as we try to, build our squads early on and navigate those early buys. But look at the buys. I think we've kind of learned that it's tricky, but with the best 18, with four, at least we've only got the 4 clubs out per buy round within, rounds 2, rounds 3, 12, 14, 15, 16. There's only a maximum of 4 teams out. So a best 18 will definitely help that. And yeah, look, I think don't think about it. Don't try to overthink it too much, as we say quite often as Supercoach pundits.
Yeah, just don't overthink it. Just make sure you have balance in mind when you're making your squad, because you don't want to stack your team with too many from the same team anyway. But the one thing that stands out to me, especially with the mid-season buys, is they haven't put too many fantasy or Supercoach relevant teams together in the buys. Like, people will argue with me about certain players and stacks of players, but you could do that with every team. But the way people seem to be talking about this upcoming Supercoach season and the players that they want to have in their teams, there doesn't look to be too many teams together that are completely Supercoach relevant. Like in round 12, when the buys start, Adelaide, Suns, North and Port Adelaide, they probably have the most Supercoach relevant grouping. But if you start with those players, then it's only that round that you're going to be without them, apart from when you have the Suns players, because they're an opening round. But having the early season buy for that grouping is almost the most Supercoach relevant grouping, but also the most Supercoach friendly grouping that we could also have as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I think if we look at that mid-stage structure, you're exactly right. Round 12 is probably the most fantasy relevant, probably followed then by maybe round 14 or 16, probably 16 with Geelong's, Dogs, St Kilda and Melbourne, then 14 with Freo, Carlton, Collingwood and Hawthorn, and then round 15 was probably the easiest to navigate with the likes of West Coast, Essendon, Sydney and Brisbane. I mean, Brisbane have a lot of fantasy relevance, we know that. As for sort of Essendon and West Coast, probably not as fantasy relevant anymore, as they, going through that massive rebuild. Sydney, look, we never know what to expect from Sydney. I mean, they've lost a few players, but also gained Charlie Curnow, as we know, in that massive trade at the very end. Who knows how he could go? But yeah, I think in terms of fantasy relevance, yeah, it's a bit of a mixed bag. But yeah, honestly, who knows who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I think West Coast's buy in round 15 is almost at a perfect place, because they will have so many rookies, and round 15 is almost the perfect jump-off point of those rookies to get the premiums coming off their buys in rounds 12, 13 and 14. So they almost have the perfect buy from a rookie perspective in Supercoach, or a cash generation perspective in Supercoach. So I think the AFL wouldn't have thought 2 seconds about fantasy or Supercoach when putting this fixture together, but it almost feels like we've had the most friendly result that we could have asked for, in a sense.
It's the best of all worst situation. You're exactly right. Yeah, look, the new sort of fixturing world that we live in, it isn't as fantasy friendly as it once was, but this is the new way of thinking from the AFL, and so this is just something that we just have to adapt with and navigate accordingly. And while it does sort of challenge a lot of casual players, I mean, I've always felt that this is probably good for the more seniored Supercoach players, because it does create so much more strategy and so much more nuanced approaches in order to maximize scoring through those weeks, and also, to really build your team really well for the long-term push throughout the season to get that trophy at the end.
Absolutely. And having so many buys, people complain about it. We have buys in 8 of 24 weeks, but when Tasmania comes into the competition, there's going to be a buy every week. So we might see the best 18 approach for an entire season, at least until the 20th team is included.
Oh, I mean, yeah, look, thinking a bit far ahead, definitely there, Damo. But yeah, look, we can't really sort of speak to what Supercoach headquarters might be thinking of on the horizon with Supercoach when the 19th team. I mean, we've seen it in NRL Supercoach already, though, with buys happening every week, and they've had to sort of adapt with extra trades available. Instead of having the 2, they've got 3. So again, maybe it's something that then they look at there instead of a best 18 scenario to counter that. But I mean, I think there's already an abundance of trades throughout the season that's kind of grown over the years, and so how it all adapts over the years, it's fascinating. It'll be fascinating to see. But yes, the buys are definitely here to stay.
Yep. So at the end of all that, just keep in mind the teams that have the early season buy out of opening round. Keep in mind the mid-season buys, but best 18 is there to assist super coaches, and just remember to keep balance and don't stack your team with too many players from one side, I guess, is the main message we're trying to get across.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, I've always been a big advocate on just keeping it simple. Don't try not to overthink it. Yes, it can be challenging, but at the end of the day, have fun. I could say try your best and be one of those sort of old dads now, but yeah, look, it's interesting, but I think look, try as best as you can. Don't try not to get frustrated. Keep it as simple as possible. Have some fun. Maybe even make those rogue selections that you're a bit sort of skeptical early on, because with Giants, as we've identified, having two buys. If we pick a Giants player who's done well in the first few rounds, get him after the round 4 buy. Then if he turns around and it's not working, then you've got the round 13 buy to sort of upgrade and work around it. So look, there's always going to be different ways to approach this, but yeah, I'm always a big advocate. Keep it simple.
Well, thanks for joining me, Azza. Thank you for coming out of retirement to talk a bit of Supercoach, even though, like I said, you don't actually play anymore. So thank you for joining.
It's an absolute pleasure as always, Damo, and I appreciate you reaching out and bringing me out of the doldrums to come on at this absolutely fantastic podcast that you're building. And, again, you should really be proud of what you've been doing over the coming years with the Footy Mailbag. I know it's been a big thing that you've undertook, and you're doing incredibly well and kicking a lot of goals. So kudos, mate.
People might not know this, but me and you had a cricket podcast a little while ago where we talked about Supercoach BBL. That was we only did it for one season, but it was the one season where I finished in the top 100. So it was a good season for me to have a podcast. So yeah, but yeah, me and you, we go a long way back.
We do, and look, we even go back even to the Jock Reynolds days as well too. So look, we've had a good bond throughout the years, and look, Supercoach BBL, that was a wild ride, and yeah, for anyone out there that season's coming up very fast as well too, with teams starting to get in development. So best of luck to those super coaches, and also best of luck to AFL super coaches for 2026.
Excellent. This has been the Footy Mailbag. Head to our website, thefootymailbag.net, for all of our written content and links to our socials. My name is Damo, @DamoSC on Twitter. Thanks for listening. We'll talk next time.